guys, it's Kelly here, and I am back with another video for Create a Smile. Today I am working with a new stamp set called Aloha Spirit, which is from their April release. I love it. It's all summery and tropical flowers, and so this particular stamp looks like a branch, but it's actually a red ginger or a pink cone ginger, which is a tropical flower. And so you're gonna see once it gets all colored. It's super beautiful. You can Google it to see photos of it, which is what I did to see how to color it. Or I posted one on my blog, and the link will be below in the YouTube description. So I wanted to build it up so that it would be a large focal point for my card. So I stamped it and then masked it, and then just kind of stamped as many as I needed. I only had to cut one mask, so I was super thrilled about that because I'm lazy. But so it ended up working out okay. I just moved the mask as I went, and then I'm using the Intense Black by Simon Says Stamp. This is a new type of Copic Safe ink, and so far I am really liking it. It is much darker than the Memento, and it's working out well. But I still outline all my images because I just enjoy doing that. I feel like I enjoy a bold black line, and that's what works for me. So I wanted to do this in some pretty bright RVs, going for more of like a hot pink look. So I'm starting with my lightest one, which is RV02. And all I'm doing is using a really light hand. I'm using a flicking motion to put on the color, and I'm going from the inside of the petals. I start where I want my darkest shading to be. Yes, I said I start with my lightest marker where I want my darkest shading to be. And this is because, just in case I get any of the shading wrong, it's super easy to cover up. Also, I start with my lightest color because I tend to get very heavy-handed with my darks if I start dark. So this is just kind of like a safeguard for me. Once I have the RV02 down, I'm going to go back in with the RV04. One thing to note when you're coloring flowers especially, you want to go with the shape of the petal. So whatever is already laid out for you, embrace that. If you try to go against the grain, it's not going to look natural. Your coloring is going to look strange. So the darkest parts are going to be where the petals are coming from the inside. That's where all your shadows are going to be. And you can see here some of the petals are coming out, so they're rolling out, which means the shading wouldn't be on the edges, it would be where it's closed, and so you just need to look for things like that. Also, there's some the way that the stamp is drawn, there's some petals that are behind the rest. Those would be darker, where any of the petals flip up over themselves, so that there's like a curled edge. The shading on the curled edge would be at the bottom, so that there was a white highlight. And that's one of the things when you're coloring, if you watched any of my videos before, I stress the importance of a highlight. The reason I stress the importance of a highlight is because one of the things that is going to give your image so much depth and make it appear to be a 3D object when it's really flat on your card is your contrast level. So when you're selecting your colors, be sure that you still want them to blend together, don't get me wrong, but you do want there to be enough contrast between your lightest point and your darkest point. So make sure you're leaving those highlights for your lightest point, and that's even if you're going to color it in solid, like you're going to take your lightest color all the way to the edges, which here I do that. You still want to leave that highlight when you're doing your coloring, or at least I do anyway, because it helps me to make sure that I still leave some room for my lightest color. I noticed when I first started Copic coloring, if I just covered the whole flower in my lightest color right from the beginning, by the end I didn't have any of my lightest color. It just like disappeared. So over blending is another thing. You want to make sure that when you're coloring with Copics, you're not over blending them. it can give the appearance of just being really flat. So you want to keep that contrast. Again, if you watch my videos, you've heard me say this before, RVs are a little more difficult. When you put an RV2 over an RV04, like I have here, it really just eats it. Like the RV04 doesn't exist. In the photo that I had selected, there was the flower, the pink ginger had yellow tips, which I thought was stunning. So I really wanted to recreate that. Normally when you're blending two colors, I try to pick a couple of each color. In this case, it wasn't really necessary for me, because the yellow blends so easily into a red violet into a pink, and makes a really pretty orange coral color. So I just really kind of blended it out with a lighter yellow, and then right now I'm considering whether or not I need to go back in with the pink, and I opted not to do that because I was a little nervous about covering up the yellow, but you can see basically my RVO2 has disappeared. So I'm going to do one more flower just so you can see how I kind of approached that. I didn't feel like it was necessary to color all 4 flowers in the video because it's the same colors, it's the same process. I thought that would be relatively boring to watch. So I'm just going to do it 2 times. And I did end up switching, which all of the supplies, all the colors I used will be on my blog as well as in the YouTube description. But I started blending my yellows. I used a Y02 and a Y00. My Y00 started running out on me, so I ended up switching to a Y000. There's not much difference in the color when you look at them on paper. So I just needed something that was going to blend that out, and it worked fine. So it's one of the reasons why I love my hex chart. Sandy Allneck has a hex chart. If you don't have one of those, look into that. I think you downloaded it for like $5 or $10. I've had it for so long I don't even remember. But basically, it's organized by color instead of by number, like Copic. The way that they organize their color chart is by number. And Sandy's is organized by color, so it really helps you to see, like, if you're running low on a marker and either you don't have the refill or you're like me and you're too lazy to refill them. It helps you to see what else you have that you already own that you could use as a substitute. So that's always nice. So you heard me talking about earlier about how some of those petals are behind. So when I colored my flowers, I try to pay attention to what lays on top of each other, what those shadows are going to look like. So you can see at this particular flower, more toward the base or the top of the card, it's substantially darker. Well, it would be because this other flower is going to be on top of it. That isn't something that's necessary. Like if you're just starting and you're just trying to get the technique down, trying to get your colors where you want them to be, I wouldn't worry about things like that. I think that it's going to be beautiful regardless of whether or not your shading is quote unquote perfect. Just don't think it's necessary. So Christine, when she drew this, she added little black dots inside the, I guess like the heart of the flower where it's blooming out from. And they're very, very pretty, and I love anything that adds some extra detail. I wanted to make them white. I wanted to give them something to kind of make them pop, to make that more noticeable. So I went in and just added white dots right over the black ones, and then I'm going to be doing a shadow. This is pretty typical of one of my cards. I love a good shadow. I feel like, especially when you're doing a 1-layer card, it's just something that gives you a little bit more dimension. So I'm starting with my darkest color, and you can do this shadow however you want. My shadows are almost always down and to the left because that's just how I learned in art class back in high school, and so it just kind of stuck with me. But you can do it however you want, down and to the right, up to the left, and you can make them as bold or as blended as you want. I prefer to blend mine out. So I start with my darkest color, which is usually a C5. and then blend out for a C3, and then finally the C1. And you can leave it just like this, and you'll have, super good depth. Like, it will really look like that flower's laying on top of your card. I wanted something that was a little extra to complement those pinks and yellows. So I ended up going around my whole image, not just the shadow side, but everything, with a BG11. If you're not into the shadows, or you don't trust yourself to do it, or maybe you just don't have time, going around your image with a BG or a B, I feel like those are neutrals, will really just help your colors pop. So try that if you're looking for something to make it a little more like, I guess, a little more like bam in your face, like really set those colors off. I told you before, I like outlining my images, so I'm using a journaling pen to do that. And then that is all of the coloring. I'm going to go ahead and stamp out the sentiment. This is from the same set, which I think is going to be so fun for summer. So I'm stamping that right in there. Love this script. I'm a huge fan of script sentiments. And then I just picked out a few, oh, I did add Wink Stella, because I love me some shimmer. So I basically just coated this bad boy. The whole thing, all of the flowers got some shimmer. You could just, if you weren't looking for that much shimmer, you could maybe just add it to the tips. You could skip it, but I never skip it. I never skip the Wink Stella. So I picked out a few gold sequins. I felt like that played nice with my color palette, and adhered those with my Tombow Mono Multi Glue. And then that's the whole card. So thank you so much for joining me. You can head over to the Create a Smile Stamps blog to see the full release, which will be available April 15th. And I will catch you guys on the next video. Bye.